Okay, fine. Another input stream which we can take now, okay, is the pushback input stream. Okay, we have those pushback streams, pushback input stream, pushback reader. They are subclass of the filter streams. Okay. So what is a pushback stream? Let's understand that. Okay, if I look at the constructor for a pushback, second level, that's one thing. It's a subclass of the filter stream. That means it's a second level stream. So if I consider pushback, and it can be xxx, okay, parameter will be xxx. This xxx is either input stream or a reader. Fine. So here, so one parameter is this, and there's one more parameter, and that second parameter is an integer value, okay, which says size of pushback buffer. So there is a pushback buffer which is used by these pushback streams. Okay, of course a constructor exists where you may only give only one parameter. There is a default value for the size of the pushback buffer. Okay. So if you look at a pushback input stream or a reader, how does it work? Okay, so here is a pushback input stream, and this is my pushback stream. Okay, and it would be dependent on some input stream that's in, right? Okay, for source, yes, the source is the some other input stream, or in case of reader, pushback reader, it's a reader. Okay, but it has an internal buffer which is known as the pushback buffer. It's not the buffer of a buffered input stream, and it's not that kind of a buffer. This pushback buffer is going to be empty. The pushback buffer here is going to be empty. Okay, fine. There's only a way where how we can populate it. Fine. It's not a buffer for what comes from the input stream. It's not that buffer which we normally find in a buffered stream. It's not that buffer. It's not for buffering purpose. Right? It's not the buffer which we normally have. Okay. Now let's see how the read functions first. Okay. If someone tries to read from a pushback stream, okay, if you say read here, okay, it will check the pushback buffer first. If pushback buffer is not empty, it will fetch the data and return the data from the pushback buffer. If the pushback buffer is empty, then only it will approach the input stream, fetch the data from there and give that data. It's not taking this data into a pushback buffer. It's not the buffer which we normally have. Right? The pushback buffer has a different thing. So yes, I said it is initially empty. Right? So how is it populated? And the only question will be, so what is different here is how it's get populated. It's populated. So, normally our input streams or readers, they have a source of data. They would have a read method to fetch data. You fetch data from it. Now what does it say? Push back. You're allowed to push data into this. It's like writing back into the, so some places there you can normally fetch data, right? And you intend to put some data back into it. Yes, we have that. So here the method name, okay, to push data into the buffer, okay, so it's going into the buffer. The name of the method is unread. We have a method called unread. Instead of they didn't call it right, that's the only thing, but it's just like the right method. In the sense, the parameter here, you can give it a single byte. Okay, you can give it a byte array. Okay, so that's your array. You could be giving a segment of a byte array, integer, offset, and length. Okay, and so the method name is unread, but someone could have called it as write, because unread will give an indication that what I have read, that's unread, right? No, it's not necessarily that way. You could be pushing anything. It's not that what you have read, that's what you will push back. You could be pushing back anything, right? So your next read will read that thing only, what you have pushed back. Okay, fine. Now, someone thinks of a use case for this. What could be the use case? Where can it be used? I'll tell you one simple logic where we have to do something like, holding some data in a buffer or something. Okay, say you have a file which has got records, right? Each line is one record. Okay, so we have a record having one field which decides the type of record. Okay, different types of records may have to be processed differently. Okay, and it is in sorted order, sorted by the record type. Okay, let's think like this. Here is a file. Okay, fine. This file has number of lines in it, right? And there's one field here. Okay, so you can think of it as one particular column. It is sorted on this record type, maybe. Okay, so there's record type 1, 1, 1, 1, and then somewhere it will say record type is 2. Fine. Now you intend to process record type 1. Okay, and at the end of processing record type 1, you would do some more activity before you start processing record type 2. Okay, fine. You have written a routine, fine, where it is given an input stream from where it can and the type of record, okay, so that it can process all of those. Okay, it will check if the type of record doesn't match the type which I've been given, okay, from the given input stream, then I don't have to process that. I know I have reached the end. Okay, so now tell me what happens when processing type 1 finishes. How does it know that type 1 has finished? Record type 1 has finished. How does it know? How do you come to know that record type 1 has finished? Only when you have read one additional record. You have read the record of type 2, the first record of type 2, and when you have read that from the input stream, that's when you will find that yes, my type 1 is over, and you will go for processing there and doing some additional processing. And then you want to start processing by reading from this input stream type 2 records. You will most likely be missing out the first record which was read earlier. The first record of type 2 has been read already, because that reading that only enabled you to know that type 1 is over. So you have an option of pushing that data back into the input stream. And so that's the purpose of pushback. One use case which one can think of. Okay, but generally if I view it, I look at it as, oh, it's an input stream which also allows me to put any kind of thing back into it. It's reading and writing both. Okay, unread is more like a write, and because it's not necessary what you have read, that's what you will be pushing back. But our use case here suggests that that is what should be done normally. Okay, clear what is pushback stream? Fine, unread, that's what the option it is giving to us. Okay, pushback streams. Yeah. What else was there? Let's check. What are the things pending? Okay, fine. So sequence, pushback. Okay, we have the string reader. Okay, and just write about the pushback in this text. Okay. In, because input stream or a reader, and not for the output stream or a writer there. Okay, so that's constructor, and it also takes one integer as a parameter. So okay, so constructors, yes, there are two constructors. This is the size of pushback buffer. Okay, and you can also create without giving the size. Okay, I think the default size is 32. Okay, and so there is some default value for the size it will be using. And so what are you expect as the your record size, if that's the use case you are using, and at least that much must be there. Okay, it will throw an exception if you try to write more than the pushback buffer. So if pushback buffer gets full, there's an exception in unread. Fine. So it's not an unlimited buffer. Okay, pushback buffer is what you decide, and you have to allocate for it. Yeah. No, 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 not unlimited. No, no, it's not going to grow. Okay, so that's the size of the pushback buffer. That's important. Okay, it should be sufficient, and you ensure that it is sufficient. Fine. Methods point of view, there are no additional methods. Oh, sorry, we have the unread. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So methods other than the method from superclass, public void unread. Okay, int. It would be byte or char depending on the type of stream it is. Okay, same way we have the public void unread method, which can take a byte array. I'm writing for byte array. Okay, but same thing is applicable to a char array. Instead of byte array, it would be char array when it's a reader. Okay, and we know integer offset and an integer for the length. Okay. And so additional methods are these only. Right? So this is the